In this video I'm going to go over the Command Protocols book for Firefight, and is it any good? So at the end of August, at the time of this video recording, Firefight got a new book. Firefight 2nd edition came out last year, and they decided this year, let's have an update book. However, things are a bit different. It's not just they've just put the FAQs and erratas in there and maybe a few new bits. No, there's a load of new stuff which actually makes it feel like it's an exactly new book. And that's for the better and a little bit for the worse, but I'll try and explain. First off, let's go through the accompanying token sheets. You get two. One has the objective markers on, they're different colours, and you get a toxic smoke marker. And on this side you get various little ones for damage, pinning and such like, with a smoke token on the bottom. These are the same that ones that came out with the rulebook and the army list book last year. And really these could have been updated because this thing here and this thing, they ain't used anymore. No, smoke more acts like an area of effect thing and is a lot simpler than rather just a square. Most people I think are happy with this change, although I'm sure there's some people that won't like it. I do feel they could have done a few more markers, or maybe done a sheet selling separately with a few more markers on them, but I don't know, if you've already got the sheet from last year, you'll like extras that could maybe put a bit of paint on, maybe use them in a different manner. It would have been nice if they were a bit different. It's a little bit of a shame, to be honest. The book is 223 pages if you include art and images at the back of the book, which I most certainly do. It's quite filled, although one thing I don't get is why it wasn't split into a rule book and a army list book like they did first time. It feels like you're going to have to flick through the book, going through from the unit profile and what the abilities are, to go through what the abilities mean earlier on in the book. Yes, stuff's a bit better placed on where stuff is, so you'll find it a bit more easy, but it's just a shame you can't have the unit list open and the rule open at the same time. It just seems like it's going backwards a little bit, where Dead Zone and Firefight 2nd edition first time did it so well. It first goes through the rules, what you need to play, how command points work, table sizes, the actions, which there have been 2 added, steady aim and Overwatch. Overwatch seems to be worded very weirdly. I get how it works. It basically means if you want to do charge reactions you still can, even if a unit's activated. It's just a really weird way it's put it. I understand it, it's just really, it could have been proofread a bit more, to be honest. Steady aim, it just allows you to ignore one modifier when you're shooting, such as being in cover, and to be honest, it's gonna make a lot of units way too overpowered. It then goes into how movement works, then goes into ranged attacks, then goes into close combat, then goes into pinning, then nerve, psychic abilities, which there aren't many but there's a few, reserves, and buildings. Now, buildings is a little bit different this time. It's been made a lot easier but made a lot more sense. If you've got, say, a bit of a building, that wouldn't be a building, that would be a ruin or something along that lines, which terrain has been made a lot simpler as well and a lot easier to understand as well. There's not all this, what would this class as, or what would that class as. Basically, what it looks like kind of is what it is. Then it goes on to vehicles, and there's been a little bit of change of exiting vehicles and charging. Not much, but a little bit. This also goes on to drones, and then the keywords, which also include at the bottom the assault reactions, and then it goes on to which page it will refer to how it works. So you've got that there, which I like they've actually put it there. It then goes on to missions, which does include how you choose your strike force. Then goes into the missions. There have been some changes into how some of them work. I need to go through them a bit more closely, but they have been made a lot more interesting. There was the battle missions and also the narrative missions. The battle missions are more straightforward. The narrative missions, there's a lot more specialisation to them. Then it goes on to building a strike force, and this is one of the biggest and best changes they've done. To start with, you need a command unit. This hasn't changed from when the first book was released. This is just same, and this gets you to unlock all your troops. You can take as many troops as you want, and for every troop you've got, you either can unlock another command or a specialist. For each 2 troops, you then get support, such as the tanks. Before, it was a case of you could use a mix of troops and specialists to unlock support, but if you used a troop to unlock something, you couldn't use that troop to unlock a support, or vice versa, which was a weird way of doing things, and it was just silly. Some people were a bit snobbish how they brushed that off, but I mean, I did say it was rubbish at the time. It also goes on to the thing where you can only have a limited number of repeating units depending on the points of the game. I've got mixed feelings on this. On the one hand, your troops surely should have more than one of each unit type, considering it's not like Kings of War where there isn't a lot of each choice to have, and how composition works is a bit different. On the other hand, some of the units are ridiculous, such as the Sturmhammer tank with a quad autocannon, and having a maximum number of them, should I say, is probably a good idea. Then goes on to additional models, and then unique units, and then examples of trademark weapons, which is a keyword on certain weapons that give bonuses depending on what order is used on them, which we'll come on to later. It then goes on to list building proper. First it starts off with faction orders, then it goes to troops, then specialists, then support, then command. Weirdly enough, they put command at the end, which I'd have thought, considering you need at least one command to unlock basically anything, you'd have put the command first, but that's just a personal preference. One thing to note on the different types of troops, command and so on, they've listed auxiliary as a different unit type. It's not. It's basically a keyword that means if that unit is a troop, it doesn't unlock specialist and support. This is kind of a good idea because most, if not all, auxiliary units are troop carriers such as mules and tank transports, meaning you could have a lot of tank transports as troops and just tank spam, essentially, which is kind of going against the spirit of the game. Faction orders have been increased. Before there was about 3, now there are 6. You might think that's a bit confusing, but don't worry, it's not like Firefight before where there was 3 levels. There's just basically 6, and they've got their command point cost. Sometimes you can boost them, and honestly they do add some extra stuff to them. Some is about trademark weapons, some is about giving extra AP for shooting, so on and so forth. One of them increases the AP for shooting weapons for the Marauders, which for a lot of their weapons, for the troops and such like, was one of their main weaknesses. Their rifles couldn't hurt anything, should I say. But with that, it's kind of give them a bit of a boost, as you were. Some unit profiles have changed, such as Enforcers getting 2 wounds now, or a lot of Forge Fathers, in fact the vast majority of them, having heavy armour, which means unless you've got the anti-tank keyword, it's going to be a lot harder to actually wound them, which wasn't really an issue before, but considering the amount of models in each squad you're probably going to have, yeah, they're going to run out pretty quickly at some point. There have also been new units added, such as the Styrian Assassin Drone. It's basically a same as the hovering platform before, the essentially vehicle drone thing, but it's basically got a gun at the front rather than a gun at the top of it, which is a bit different. Some units haven't got models yet, such as the Enforcer Novashot Peacekeepers. I'd imagine they're basically really heavy Peacekeepers because, I mean, they've got 3 wounds each and they've got armour 8. Yeah, they don't move as fast. So yeah, they're gonna be hard to kill. A new faction has been added starting on page 136, which is the Maison Labs. These are kind of like the GCPS mixed in with the Plague, and that could kind of be seen in Dead Zone. It is definitely seen in Firefight. You've got a lot more Plague things such as murder birds and plague swarms, and you've basically got more stuff to use from Star Saga, which is nice. You don't have a unit of lab technicians, they're more like drone type units or commanders. After the army lists, it then goes on to the new way to play Firefight, Annihilation, starting on page 174. This is a little bit disappointing for me, considering how much Mantic was hyping Firefight Annihilation up. The basic way of how it plays, it's only 2 pages long, and then the missions is only 3 pages long. I would have honestly wanted maybe double, if not triple, the amount of pages dedicated for rules of Firefight. I would have perhaps also liked to see vehicle squadrons, perhaps something along that lines. Maybe they'll do it in an update, maybe they won't, we'll have to see. Then goes into the background, which is about same as before. So if you've read the background before, you'll not be missing anything, really. You've then got a few pictures of artwork, which includes one from the Firefight First Edition rulebook, but expanded, which I've always wanted to see what the other side looks like. I'll just try and get it all in. So mostly it was this side to start with, but now they're showing this side, which is quite nice actually. So there it is. The book is, quite honestly, if you're playing Firefight, it's pretty much mandatory, which if you're not wanting to spend 30 quid a year is going to be a bit of an issue, considering how things have changed. If you're just going to stick with the original books, then fair enough. You are limiting yourself on the amount of updates, new units, new action options and so on, which is a bit of a shame, to be honest. I would have liked it, like I say, where the rules were its own little book and then the force list were its other little book. Yes, package them together, fair enough, but make them separate books. I would have also liked it if Mantic sold them separately as well, just in case people just wanted one book rather than the other. Yes, it would have been confusing, but some people, I'm sure, would have liked that. Would have also liked the tokens to be a bit different to reflect what the changes are. But I like the book. I was a bit hesitant with the book, and I was in 2 minds about getting it. But regardless of whether it's mandatory or not, I think it's a pretty good book on what they've updated. I do think if they come to do another one, They really should go back to the format of just having the unit book, where perhaps it includes the updates, or maybe they're just going to do it like this, which to me is a shame. But there you go. 30 quid. I mean, if you're annoyed about just buying updates once a year, I can kind of sympathise with you. Mantic's not the worst company to do it by far. I mean, we all know worse. And should it be done? That might be a different discussion. I mean, they've done it with Dead Zone for long enough, but it's not a case of the entire rules have changed. It's just bits here and there have been added, and rules of units have changed a little bit. But who knows? It might be a one-a-year thing. We'll have to see. I like the book as it is. I like what they've added. They will be adding stuff to the companion app, so if you just want to know the rules, yeah, they'll probably update the basics of the rules so you can just do kill missions and so on. So I suppose unless you want the ins and outs of the game, you could potentially play it for free. So that's it for now. I would wholeheartedly recommend Firefight to play. It is a really good game, and if you're coming from Dead Zone, you've already got a start. So until next one, goodbye for now.